A very good evening to all of you and welcome to Rajya Sabha TV. My name is Aditi Nagpal Girotra and you're watching News Tonight, where we bring you updates from in and around the world. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday dedicated to the nation Asia's largest solar power project in Rewa. Addressing the launch via video conferencing, he called solar energy crucial in making India Atmanirbhar.
Pure, sure and secure solar energy is a major medium to meet the energy needs of an aspirational India in the 21st century, said Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday. Addressing the launch of the 750 megawatt mega solar plant via video conferencing, Prime Minister called solar energy projects a true representation of the Atmanirbhar Bharat.
सौर ऊर्जा श्योर है, प्योर है और सिक्योर है। श्योर इसलिए क्योंकि ऊर्जा के बिजली के दूसरे स्रोत खत्म हो सकते हैं, लेकिन सूर्य सदा सर्वदा पूरे विश्व में हमेशा ही चमकता रहेगा। प्योर इसलिए क्योंकि ये पर्यावरण को प्रदूषित करने के बजाय उसको सुरक्षित रखने के में मदद करता है।
The Prime Minister said the government is giving priority to environmental protection in all its policies. He said the Rewa plant will reduce emission equivalent to 15 lakh tons of carbon dioxide every year.
पूरी दुनिया के नीति निर्माता बरसों से दुविधा में हैं कि इकोनॉमी की सोचे या एनवायरनमेंट की सोचे। इसी ऊहापोह में फैसले कहीं एक पक्ष में लिए जाते हैं और कहीं दूसरे पक्ष में लिए जाते हैं, लेकिन भारत ने ये दिखाया है कि ये दोनों एक दूसरे के विरोधी नहीं है, बल्कि एक दूसरे के सहयोगी हैं।
The Prime Minister said the government is working towards keeping our environment, air, water and other resources clean. He said the world is seeking India as the most attractive market of clean energy.
दुनिया की, समग्र मानवता की भारत से इसी आशा, इसी अपेक्षा को देखते हुए हम पूरे विश्व को जोड़ने में जुटे हुए हैं। इसी सोच का परिणाम आईसा यानी इंटरनेशनल सोलर अलायंस आईसा, इसका हमने निर्माण किया है। वन वर्ल्ड, वन सन, वन ग्रिड के पीछे की यही भावना है।
Several union ministers attended the launch along with Madhya Pradesh Governor Anandiben Patel and Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan.
रीवा सौर परियोजना ने सौर ऊर्जा के क्षेत्र में नए कीर्तिमान रचे हैं, जिससे इसे गेम चेंजर परियोजना के रूप में मान्य किया गया है।
Asia's largest solar power project has 3 solar generating units of 250 megawatts each on a 500-hectare land inside a solar park in Rewa. Madhya Pradesh will get 76% electricity from the plant, while the Delhi Metro will get 24%. Apart from Rewa, work is also underway on solar power plants in Shahjahanpur, Neemuch and Chhatarpur. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
It was in 2010 that India set up the National Solar Mission to promote the use of solar energy. Since then, the country has made significant strides to achieve its renewable energy goals. Here's a look at where India stands.
The launch of the 750 megawatts Rewa solar project has brought India closer to its target of achieving 175 gigawatts of installed renewable energy capacity by 2022. This includes 100 gigawatt of solar installed capacity. In January 2010, the National Solar Mission was operationalized. The initial target was to install 20 gigawatts grid-connected solar power plants by 2022. In 2015, the Modi government raised the target to 100 gigawatts by 2022. By December 2019, India's total installed solar power capacity was 33,730 megawatts. 3 solar parks at Kurnool, Andhra Pradesh, Bhadla 2, Rajasthan, and Pavagada in Karnataka were operationalized. In the last 5 years, India's solar power capacity has increased from 2,630 megawatts to 37,505 megawatts in December 2019. More than 40,000 Surya Mitras were trained in these 5 years in response to the growing needs of the solar energy sector and its service industry.
The seeds of change are there. Renewable energy is the only energy source expected to grow in 2020. Solar auctions have seen popularity amidst the height of the pandemic, and India serves as a good example.
Apart from increasing solar energy supply, India is also providing global leadership in this respect. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and French President François Hollande jointly launched the International Solar Alliance in November 2015. It aims to provide a platform for cooperation among solar resource-rich countries. The ISA seeks to increase use of solar energy in meeting the energy needs of ISA member countries in a sustainable manner. Simultaneously, India has taken many steps to reduce emissions. Under the Paris Agreement, by 2030, it wants to reduce emission intensity of its gross domestic product by 35%. India has achieved 21% reduction in emission intensity of GDP. India is carbon taxing coal production at the rate of $6 per ton. Over 80 million LPG gas connections have replaced firewood stoves. In 5 years, India's green cover increased by 15,000 square kilometers. Other than existing projects, tenders of around 22,839 megawatts are in the works to further boost India's solar energy capacity. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
The Committee on Science and Technology held a meeting on Friday. It is one of the 8 committees serviced by the Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha Chairman M. Venkaiah Naidu expressed happiness that department-related parliamentary standing committees have resumed functioning 3.5 months since the last sitting of Parliament on 23rd March.
Rajya Sabha Chairman M. Venkaiah Naidu said the coronavirus pandemic did cast a shadow on the working of committees that function on behalf of the Parliament. He said while everyone was keen to resume work, the delay was forced by circumstances beyond people's control. Measures have been taken to facilitate the committee's meetings by complying with social distancing and wearing of masks. The chairman expressed happiness that the committees will continue their task of examining important issues concerning respective domains. One of the 8 committees serviced by Rajya Sabha, the Committee on Science and Technology, held a meeting on Friday. The Committee on Home Affairs, also of Rajya Sabha, is scheduled to meet next week. Its scheduled meeting in the first week of June could not be held due to the concerns over the COVID-19 situation. Kriti Mishra, Rajya Sabha TV.
Fresh coronavirus cases in India crossed the 25,000 mark for the first time on Thursday. This is the highest single-day spike of new cases to date. With this increase, the total cases of COVID-19 in the country are now very close to 8 lakh.
India on Friday crossed 7.93 lakh coronavirus cases with a record 26,506 new patients testing positive for the highly contagious virus. This is the biggest single-day jump in cases so far. With 475 deaths reported on Thursday, the number of coronavirus positive people who have died has gone up to 21,604. Over 4.95 lakh patients have recovered from the disease, while there are over 2.76 lakh active cases. 62.42% patients have recovered so far. With a strict focus on test, track and treat strategy, the number of samples tested for detection of COVID-19 has crossed 1.1 crore. Over 2.83 lakh samples were tested on Thursday. 3 states, Maharashtra, Delhi and Tamil Nadu, currently account for about 60% of the country's caseload. With 6,875 new COVID-19 cases, Maharashtra crossed 2.3 lakh cases on Thursday. 219 deaths were reported across the state. Mumbai recorded 1,268 fresh cases, taking the case count in the city to 89,124. Death toll in the state now stands at 9,667, while in Mumbai it is 5,132. Tamil Nadu has the second highest number of cases in the country with over 1.26 lakh cases. The COVID-19 death toll in the state now stands at 1,765. The total number of people who recovered from the disease in the state is 78,161. The daily increase in coronavirus figures of Chennai, the epicenter of the disease in Tamil Nadu, has dipped by 60% over the last 5 days. But new hotspots are emerging in other districts, including the temple town of Madurai. Delhi has 1,07,051 cases in total. However, the recovery rate of the city seems to be rising as well. Out of the total persons infected, 82,226 have recovered. The capital has recorded 3,258 deaths so far. While the cases have dipped or plateaued in some states, infections have increased in others. The latest surge is in Karnataka, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. Andhra Pradesh registered the single-day highest of 1,608 cases, taking its COVID-19 tally to 25,422. The number of deaths reached 292 with 15 deaths on Thursday. In Karnataka, the total number of COVID-19 infections crossed 30,000 as it reported its biggest single-day spike of over 2,200 new cases and 17 related fatalities, taking the toll to 486. The number of cases in Telangana also crossed the 30,000 mark as 1,410 new cases were reported on Thursday. 331 people have succumbed to the disease in the state. Cases are also rising in Odisha. Close to 4,000 new cases have been discovered in the state in the last 1 week, with the state's total now touching 12,000. Meanwhile, Uttar Pradesh government imposed a 55-hour lockdown which will be enforced from 10 p.m. tonight and remain in force till 5 a.m. on Monday. Uttar Pradesh reported 1,248 new COVID-19 positive cases in the last 24 hours. There are 10,373 active cases, 21,127 discharged so far, and 862 patients have succumbed to the infection. While India has the third highest number of coronavirus cases in the world after the United States and Brazil, the number of deaths are rising slower than the confirmed cases or recoveries. India has so far recorded 21,000 deaths from COVID-19, that is the 8th highest tally in the world. At the national level, the case fatality rate has declined to 2.72% from 2.82% a month earlier. India also has a high recovery rate compared to many countries. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
More than 12.4 million coronavirus cases have been recorded worldwide, while deaths across the world have touched over 5.58 lakh.
The Americas have more than half the world's total infections with over 6.2 million cases. The United States topped all countries with over 3.2 million cases. Over the past week, the US has seen an average of more than 52,000 new cases per day, up 20.3% from a week ago. COVID-19 cases in Latin America exceeded 3.15 million on Thursday. More than 1.7 million people in Brazil have tested positive for coronavirus and nearly 70,000 have died. The economy in Latin America and the Caribbean has been hit hard by the pandemic. GDP is expected to contract by 9.1% this year, the worst recession in the region in a century. Further, a new UN report warns that unemployment in the region is expected to rise to 13.5% from 8.1% last year, affecting more than 44 million people. Meanwhile, the poverty rate is also expected to rise from 30.2% to 37.2%, affecting around 230 million people.
For Latin America and the Caribbean, the international community must provide liquidity, financial assistance, and debt relief. Latin American and Caribbean countries, and in particular small island developing states, should not be excluded from global assistance. The international multilateral response needs to be extended to middle-income countries.
Japan further progressed with reopening plans despite rising coronavirus cases, allowing events of up to 5,000 people, including sporting events and musical concerts. Tokyo reported 243 infections on Friday, the biggest single-day spike in the country so far. Hong Kong is suspending all schools from Monday due to a spike in coronavirus cases. Hong Kong reported 38 new coronavirus cases on Friday, bringing the total tally to over 1,400. Australia's Victoria State reported a single-day jump of 288 new cases on Friday, bringing the country's total to around 9,000 cases. In response to the recent outbreak, the country is limiting the number of people who can enter the country from overseas. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization on Thursday released new guidelines on the transmission of the novel coronavirus that acknowledge some reports of airborne transmission of the virus. In its latest guidelines, the agency acknowledged the possibility of airborne transmission in public settings, such as during choir practice, in restaurants, or in fitness classes. However, WHO has called for more evidence to confirm airborne transmission of COVID-19. Further, the global agency is also setting up an independent panel to investigate the global response to the coronavirus pandemic. Former leaders of New Zealand and Liberia will lead the probe.
The 16th meeting of the Working Mechanism for Consultation and Coordination on India-China Border Affairs was held on Friday.
The Indian delegation was led by Joint Secretary East Asia from the Ministry of External Affairs, while the Director General of the Boundary and Oceanic Department of the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs led the Chinese delegation. At the meeting, both sides recalled the agreement reached between foreign ministers of both countries on the 17th of June, as well as the agreement between the two special representatives on boundary talks during their telephonic conversation on the 5th of July. The two sides reaffirmed to ensure complete disengagement of troops along the line of actual control and de-escalation from the India-China border areas. They reviewed the situation in the India-China border areas, including the progress made in the ongoing disengagement process along the LAC in the western sector. They agreed that it was necessary for both sides to sincerely implement the understandings reached between senior commanders. A meeting between senior army commanders is also likely to take place soon to discuss further steps so as to ensure complete disengagement and de-escalation in a timely manner. Both sides also agreed to maintain the ongoing communication at the diplomatic and military levels to ensure early resolution of the situation.
Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu has urged Delhi University authorities to continue the present quota procedure by earmarking seats for talented artists.
The Vice President made the suggestion after receiving numerous requests from members of Parliament and prominent artists. Naidu, who is also the Chancellor of Delhi University, made these remarks in a meeting with the Pro-Vice Chancellor and Dean Colleges, Delhi University. He also suggested that the university take prompt action on finalizing the examination calendar as well as on filling up vacant positions in the university.
The Code on Wages 2019, the first law under the labour reforms initiated by Modi government, is likely to be implemented by September. The government has issued a Gazette notification for draft rules for the Code on Wages law.
Through the notification, the Centre has invited suggestions that will be considered before a final draft is accepted. These rules come a year after Parliament passed the Code on Wages Bill, allowing the Centre to set a minimum statutory wage. The law is expected to benefit 50 crore workers across the country. The wage code universalizes the provisions of minimum wages and timely payment of wages to all employees, irrespective of the sector and wage ceiling. At present, the provisions of both the Minimum Wages Act and Payment of Wages Act apply on the workers below a particular wage ceiling working in scheduled employments only. The wage code will ensure the right to sustenance for every worker and intends to increase the legislative protection of minimum wage from the existing about 40% workforce to 100% workforce. The code will effectively address the problems relating to delay in the payment of wages, whether on monthly, weekly or daily basis. The court will also ensure that there is no discrimination between males and females in getting wages.
Union Minister for Information and Technology Ravi Shankar Prasad has called for transparency and openness in data usage.
Addressing the India Global Week 2020 on Thursday, he said one country's data shouldn't be used by another as surreptitious property. Calling data imperialism unacceptable, the minister added that a true digital world can only survive in a democratic ecosystem. He said there was a need to get into the habit of uploading apps made in India, while adding that government has schemes to fund startups developing apps.
The central government has tightened norms for sales by e-commerce companies. The Consumer Affairs Ministry made it mandatory for e-commerce firms to display the country of origin on all their products.
Consumer Affairs Minister Ram Vilas Paswan on Thursday directed state governments to strictly enforce the provision. He said, be it for offline or online platform sales, country of origin will have to be compulsorily displayed along with the details, MRP, day of expiry, net quantity and consumer care. The ministry also deputed an officer to monitor if firms are complying with the legal metrology packaged commodities rules. The rule on country of origin has been in place since January 2018 for all manufacturers, importers, packers and e-commerce players.
Uttar Pradesh gangster Vikas Dubey was shot dead on Friday morning as he was being brought to Kanpur from Madhya Pradesh's Ujjain.
Assistant Superintendent of Police Kanpur, Dr. Anil Kumar said a police team consisting officials from UP's Special Task Force and Kanpur Police were bringing Dubey on a transit remand to Kanpur. According to the police, while being transported, one of the cars in the police convoy overturned. Taking advantage of the situation, Dubey allegedly attempted to snatch a weapon and flee the scene, following which the police opened fire and shot him. 3 sub-inspectors, a constable and 2 STF commandos were injured during the incident that took place at around 7 am between Jhansi and Kanpur. Dubey was arrested in Ujjain on Thursday from the Mahakaleshwar temple. Dubey was on the run since 3rd of July after he and his men ambushed and killed 8 policemen out to arrest him in his Bikru village near Kanpur. Since then, the police have killed 5 of his close aides, including his personal bodyguard. There were 62 criminal cases lodged against Dubey in Uttar Pradesh, including 5 cases of murder and 8 cases of attempt to murder.
The Union Home Ministry has permitted the National Investigation Agency to investigate the Kerala gold smuggling case.
The ministry said the decision has been taken as the organized smuggling operation may have serious implications for national security. Welcoming the NIA probe, Kerala Minister E.P. Jayarajan said it should be unbiased and fair and truth must come out. The decision came a day after Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan wrote a letter to Prime Minister Narendra Modi seeking an effective investigation into the seizure of gold worth crores of rupees from a diplomatic baggage at the airport in the state capital. The gold weighing over 30 kilograms was seized from the diplomatic baggage that had landed by air cargo at the Thiruvananthapuram airport. The Customs Department has said it suspected a smuggling syndicate had misused the name of a person in the United Arab Emirates consulate who enjoys diplomatic immunity. On Thursday, India said it was keeping the UAE embassy informed about the case and that the mission was extending all cooperation to the customs authorities.
A crucial standing committee meeting of Nepal's ruling Communist Party was postponed for the 5th time on Friday.
The party is facing the possibility of split amid mounting pressure on Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli to quit office. The recent developments are a result of rift between 2 NCP factions led by Oli and Chairman Pushpa Kamal Dahal Prachanda. Backed by senior leaders and former Prime Ministers Madhav Kumar Nepal and Jhalanath Khannal, the Prachanda faction is demanding Oli's resignation, citing his government's failure to fight the coronavirus pandemic. They are also questioning Oli's foreign policy decisions and his actions bypassing the party. The growing involvement of Chinese ambassador Hu Yankui in the country's political matters has also come for criticism. Besides calling on President Bidya Devi Bhandari, Hu has held talks with both leaders.
On day 2nd of the virtual Counter-Terrorism Week, organized by the United Nations, India slammed Pakistan for sponsoring cross-border terrorism and using mainstream terrorism as a statecraft.
Mahavir Singhvi, Joint Secretary for Counter-Terrorism, Ministry of External Affairs, said, Pakistan continues to provide military, financial and logistical support to cross-border terrorism, despite pressures from the United Nations, FATF and several other international fora. The country also continues to deny the victims of terrorism their fundamental right to justice by not acting on the concrete evidences shared by India on several terrorist attacks, including the 1993 Mumbai serial blast and the 2008 Mumbai terror attack. He said the perpetrators of these heinous crimes have been proscribed by the UNSC 1267 committee but continue to enjoy state hospitality in Pakistan.
It is unfortunate that Pakistan, a sponsor of cross-border terrorism and the globally acknowledged fountainhead and pernicious cradle of terrorism, has once again used this forum for propagating its discredited narrative and making mischievous and scurrilous allegations against India. While the whole world, including India, has undertaken proactive steps to promote human rights and build resilience against terrorism, one country, that is Pakistan, has mainstreamed terrorism as statecraft. It continues to provide military, financial and logistic support to cross-border terrorism.
And with this, it's a wrap on this edition of News Tonight. Thank you so much for joining us.